Well, after all these years of moaning and groaning and being bored to death and being disgusted, that's what's happening now because, as I mentioned, the physical market. That is the key. It's the only way it will occur. Buyers are coming in. There are new buyers from all over the place, perhaps many different sources. It's controversial exactly who it is, but it's clear they're there. They're there for every dip when the gold cartel attacks. I've never seen anything like it, and I can't stress that enough. And that there's a scramble to get physical gold. And the bad guys, after all these years, have run out of enough supply. Doesn't mean they don't have any, but they don't have enough to slow the move up down. And I don't think that's going to go away. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to get much worse.
As a responsible person with growing concerns for your privacy and personal liberty, you want to know where we're headed and what you can do about it. We ask the experts what you need to do to take prudent and responsible action to safeguard your family's wealth and well-being, and what basic first steps will help you to be aware and prepared. ReluctantPreppers.com.
What if gold or silver drop in price after I order it?
Well, everything fluctuates with time, but nothing has held up longer and better than gold and silver throughout all the changes that have happened in history. Your first ounce of silver is at spot price, and you get free shipping on any order over $99 at sdbullion.com/RP. Reluctant Preppers provides educational awareness and commentary only. Opinions expressed do not constitute personalized financial advice. Viewers are encouraged to do their own research and seek qualified personal financial consultation before making investment decisions. Welcome back, Reluctant Preppers. Today is Tuesday, August 6, 2019. We have a legendary returning guest here, Bill Murphy, co-founder of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, GATA.org. He's a well-known vigilante and crusader for the truth in trying to restore true markets to gold and silver and real money for the good of the people. Bill, thanks for joining us again here on Reluctant Preppers.
Thanks for having me again, DK. Good to see you.
We've got a whole raft of viewers' questions that have been submitted for you, but if you could kick us off first by just talking to us about what in the world is going on with gold. Over the last 2 quarters, gold has broken out from the bottom of a 6-year trading trough, and now over the last month and a half or so has been above what was previously like a no-go zone beyond where it had been trading for all that time. What do you think is driving the action of gold, and as you watch it on a daily basis, what do you think is different about how it's behaving now?
Well, as you mentioned, it broke about 2.5 months ago. It broke out of a 6-year base, a very powerful base. And since then, the gold price has rallied more than $100. And I've never seen anything like it before, having watched it for 20 years and traded commodities in a pretty big scale over a period of time. Everything's changed. And I think it's because the gold cartel, as we call it, the bullion banks, central banks, U.S. government, and so on, are running out of enough physical gold to take on all the buying that's coming in all over the world for the right reasons. And yes, there were a lot of these reasons before, but now they've hit the wall on physical supply. It's there, but it's dwindling. And every time they attack nowadays, the gold price comes right back in a day or two or hours. In the old days, it was dead for a month or two. It didn't have a chance. It's totally changed. Gold has reached all-time highs in 73 different currencies. I don't see any reason in not too long coming up that we don't make an all-time high in gold, because I think there's something so powerful going on behind the scenes that the bad guys are just in big trouble, and we're going to soon get what we call a commercial signal failure, in which the shorts, the commercials, the gold cartel actually get beat, and they're not used to that hardly ever.
We've got a bunch of viewers' questions. If we can get on into that, Matthew C. asks, with central banks canceling gold agreements with one another and having large accumulation, could there be a default in paper contracts soon?
Well, it's a very good point. One thing from my standpoint, I don't believe anything the central banks say or do, because all we've found them to do is to lie for 20 years, never give out the truth, never answer questions. So it's very difficult to know exactly what's going on. But we heard of a tight physical gold market a couple of years ago, and it didn't mean anything. Or before nothing happened. It went on and on and on, and then we've had this phenomenon for a couple of years, exchange for physicals, which is a rare thing on the COMEX. We exchange the futures contract for physical, and they've been enormous at times, and nobody quite knows exactly how it works or are positive of it. But I think it's all about a tightening physical gold market that is really in scarce supply, and they may have done something because they know it's coming and they can't stop it. Certainly they try to bomb it in, and we know it's them trading because nothing else is going on. So it's very possible there can be some kind of default, especially because there are so many claims on a physical ounce of gold. 10, 11 years ago it was supposed to be 100 to 1, and people say it's much higher than that. If you have a Deutsche, interesting enough, gold started to take off around the time Deutsche Bank had its restructuring program. And possibly there's a lot of defaults out there on physical claims of gold, and it's just reverberating. And it's got the people that need gold in there buying it because they have to get it back.
You mentioned the U.S. debt clock, and that's exactly what Jordan King, who's the next viewer, asked. He says the U.S. debt clock shows 198 to 1. Can you explain physical inventories versus what actually exists?
Well, if it was what I was referring to, it has to do with these paper claims on a physical ounce of gold. Mm-hmm. And it's been talked about for a long time. And even in the silver market, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 years ago, Morgan Stanley was fined millions of dollars for selling the same silver to different accounts and having it on their books. And this is what was being done in the gold market, and we think to a big degree. And if that's kicking in gradually and they're scrambling to get gold back to get back to clients, because say, for example, say a Deutsche Bank retail sales operation is closing down, well, they've got to get the gold back to the people. They can't just say, well, it's not there. So it's what we do know for sure is something major is going on behind the scenes. Gold just does not trade like this, and it's been going on for some time now.
We have a viewer, Rasputin, who asks, does Trump care about precious metals manipulation? Is he willing to put an end to this? Has Gata contacted him directly?
Well, no, we've contacted everybody, and we just don't get responses. And we keep trying so hard for many years. And, when it comes to President Trump, he's nominating Judy Shelton, who's a big gold advocate, as many people know. And certainly he's got enough gold in his buildings, that's for sure. But, it's hard to say, where he comes from. We know he wants a lower dollar, but, it's the money and power is behind the scenes, and they've been that way for many presidents. And he doesn't necessarily have a say in what's going to happen with our gold. We don't even know if we have all our gold. Many in the Gata camp think a lot of the U.S. gold is gone or swapped out or leased out. So it's very difficult to say.
We have another viewer, Okay, I Get It, who says, hello, Bill. Hope you're well. I've been stacking silver off and on since the Hunt brothers. That gives you a little idea of my age. The Hunt brothers went bankrupt solely because our government changed the rules. I still hold out hope that myself or my daughter will reap the benefits of a higher silver price. But, man, the criminals have taken over every aspect of this government. Nobody goes to jail. You hold out hope that somebody's going to come in and drain the swamp, but they just change the color of the alligators from blue to red. I hope I live long enough to see some of these criminals in jail and the system change back to the way it used to be. Signed, Old School. So that's more of a statement, or a series of statements, than a question. But the question is, do we have reason for hope that somebody's going to come in and really drain the swamp?
Well, it's one old school to another. So me being about as old a school as you can get to. All I can say is, and I was around for the Hunt fiasco, and what a disaster and unfair thing that occurred. And the irony is now, as well as gold is acting, which I just went into, silver is the most boring, worst acting market I've ever seen in my whole life. J.P. Morgan has it under total control. They've lost control of gold. They're going bonkers trying to keep the silver price down. The open interest on the COMEX is 100,000 contracts plus more than it was when gold went to $50 an ounce in 2011. And it's the most aggravating thing I've ever watched in all my life. You come in, it just sits there for at one price for 4 or 5 hours, as active as gold is. Somehow, to me, I think they have a big problem. Gold's going to go bananas. And now the gold-silver ratio is about 90 to 1. It's a joke. Silver should be about $25 right now if it was equivalent to gold, in my opinion. So I think what's going to happen is JP Morgan is trying to figure out what to do. Gold market is going to take off, and at some point they're going to have to make some kind of adjustment. I don't know, buy all kinds of over-the-counter options or do something to get themselves out of their short trap in the futures market. And it's only a matter of time, and it gets more frustrating every single day, because I'm somebody who probably mentioned you some time ago, I'm looking for silver to go to 100. It can't even get past 1660. I mean, right. You know, and it's them. It's exactly what the old school is talking about. It's the most corrupt thing I've ever seen, and it's so obvious.
We have another viewer, Jeff Briggs, who says, how would you recommend a nonprofit organization such as a church prepare for the upcoming economic changes?
Well, you know, I'm prejudiced, of course, and I think, you know, certainly to get the money in gold and silver is a good way to do that, because everything is there and every reason for the gold market to soar. And what people don't understand is, many of your people do, but it was artificially suppressed all that year to an artificially low price. Pardon me, it was suppressed to an artificially low price. It wasn't artificial suppression. And that's all that power has built up in the gold and silver markets because it was kept too low for too long. And now it's been let out of the cage, so to speak. And that's why gold is trading so differently, because of the physical market, as I mentioned. And silver, when it ever does take on JP Morgan and make the big move, will be spectacular. As people know that have followed silver, people that have followed the silver market, when silver goes, it moves up faster than in almost any other market there is. And this time it will be spectacular because of what JP Morgan has done.
SG Fan says, when will we see over $100 an ounce silver?
Well, I thought it was going to begin a couple of years ago, so I've been way too early. But my feeling is, as mentioned, that when it goes, it's going to go fast. And as you've probably heard me say before, 21 is the key to me. And that would be the equivalent of when gold broke out of its own base. That would complete a silver base. And I think once it gets above that, it'll just go flying, because somebody will have finally found a way to take out a JP Morgan. Eric Sprott remarked a little while ago that there were, in the silver ETF, there was 11 times the normal amount of buying. And I think that's the tip of the iceberg, and how they're holding it down here is beyond me, but they are. I just think once it goes, it will be something else to watch.
Yeah, that also correlates with what we had Ted Butler on last week talking about. He said there's unprecedented cash flows going into silver ETFs at this time, which, if according to the bylaws of the prospectus of the ETFs, means they should be accumulating physical at that same amount.
Yeah, but you never know, because the custodian's JP Morgan.
Yeah.
So who the heck knows?
Back to that mechanism that gets used for price suppression, H. Paul Fuchs asks, if the banks can control 500 ounces of gold for about $150 and naked short physical with these contracts, what will break free the price of physical from being set by the futures derivatives? You have to hand it to our owners for setting up this clever, if malevolent, system.
Well, after all these years of moaning and groaning and being bored to death and being disgusted, that's what's happening now, because, as I mentioned, the physical market, that is the key. It's the only way it will occur. Buyers are coming in. There are new buyers from all over the place, perhaps many different sources. It's controversial exactly who it is, but it's clear they're there. They're there for every dip when the gold cartel attacks. I've never seen anything like it, and I can't stress that enough. And that there's a scramble to get physical gold. And the bad guys, after all these years, have run out of enough supply. It doesn't mean they don't have any, but they don't have enough to slow the move up down. And I don't think that's going to go away. As a matter of fact, I think it's going to get much worse. James McShirley, who's a lumber company executive, and as I mentioned before, knows all about the futures markets. He's just amazed at the volatility in gold, what they're doing to try to stop it. And I think gold's becoming more volatile, which it has relative to recent years. But as he said, we're going to have $50 and $100 up days, $200 up days, correction, go back up again. It's going to get wild. And that's because of the gold cartel losing control.
We've been speaking with Bill Murphy. He is the co-founder of the Gold Antitrust Action Committee, GATA.org. Bill, before we let you go, any final thoughts for our viewers?
Yeah, well, if anybody wants to follow me in the Metropole Cafe, they can sign up for a 2-week free trial. My colleague Chris Powell at www.gada.org does a great job. They can get on his mailing list right away. And I just think after all these years, it's really going to be spectacular. And we have a lot to look forward to, and everything has changed, and it's about time.
Well, there's certainly a lot of sound money enthusiasts on our channel who've been trying to not only protect themselves and their families from undue risk and exposure to theft of the fruits of their labor that our fiat system imposes on them, and negative interest rate policies and cashless policy changes and everything. But they're also been following your work for some time as a vigilante and a crusader for the truth, and they really want to see justice happen, and they want to see truth in their money, something that they can believe in. So we'll watch closely with you, and thank you for being here in our corner as always, Bill.
One more thing, DK, just real quick. I just thought of it. What a joke that the United States is calling China a currency manipulator.
Currency manipulator, yeah.
I mean, are you kidding me? We're the biggest manipulator of the best currency going for all these years, and nobody will mention it. And then you get this thing, a statement about a Chinese currency, and that's all you hear about all day long. And anyway, you can imagine what I was thinking once I heard that, and what a big deal it was made out of it.
That's a good point, and it's almost in the current news cycle. It's almost as though you can basically take whatever you're hearing on the official channels and think about what would that be if it was the opposite was true, and you probably end up pretty close to the truth. So, Bill, thanks for joining us here and providing that alternative viewpoint that people are not going to be hearing on the mainstream channels. So, thank you.
DK, I hope the next time we're speaking to each other goes at least $100 to $200 higher and all heck's breaking loose.
We'll look forward to that. Thanks, Bill. Hey, Reluctant Preppers. If you haven't heard, we've already started our monthly 1-ounce U.S. Silver Eagle thank you gift to one active Patreon subscriber each month, signed by your host, Dunagun Kaiser. And you don't want to miss out on that.
Please help us grow by subscribing today at patreon.com/reluctantpreppers.